Good evening and welcome to tonight's playoff second leg preview of our two-legged tie with AFC Wimbledon. Fair to say, eventful Saturday night for everyone. I think we'd all agree a much improved performance. But how much have we still left ourselves to do in Southwest London on Saturday? Coincidentally, it was a weekend of surprises in the playoffs, wasn't it? I know that our regular Saddlers fan Steve Jones is already online. Walsall in a commanding position against Chesterfield. Who's going to be really brave and predict a rerun of Notts versus Chesterfield from a couple of seasons ago? One of the many questions tonight to be asked and debated. Do we need to fight fire with fire? Do you think we were bullied on Saturday? Or is it more a case we need to be clinical in both boxers? 4 home defeats on the bounce now. We are, I think we'd all agree, a different proposition away from home. Can we still do it? All this and more in tonight's show. Stell, evening.
Evening, Paul.
Yes.
Evening, everybody.
Saturday night, 8 o'clock, not a great time for football, was it? Eventful evening. Sum it all up. It's this debate, it's this age-old debate against performance and result, isn't it? And I was talking to Paul Hawksworth, one of the show regulars, and I think he's probably, until I hear from you, obviously, I thought he summed it up as well as anyone I've spoken to so far. And he said, if you were a neutral, you're on the telly and you're watching that game on Saturday, you say, oh, Notts, quality team, played really well, really unlucky. Yeah? He said, but if you are a regular Notts fan and you've watched us for quite a bit of the season, you kind of say, same old, same old, same old. Missing chances, conceding soft goals, and kind of almost being mugged, if you like, for want of a better phrase. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summation of it all, isn't it? You know, as a one-off, we played well, performed well, particularly second half. The game got a lot more open with the quality. I think we looked more threatening, far more threatening in the second half. But absolutely right. I've been there all season. You've been there all season, and most of the people watching this have been there all season, and it has got that recurring theme of playing well, playing the good football, possession-based football that we know not to play, but end product. And by end product, I mean putting the ball in the back of the net. We created chances, we had chances. The keeper's made a couple of great saves, and they've made a couple of last-ditch goal line clearances. So you're quite right when somebody could say, a neutral could look at it and go, well, Notts were unlucky. But this is where I say, unfortunately, you make your own luck. Absolutely, a couple of the keeper's saves, great saves. There's nothing more could be done. But when you look at the chances in isolation, if a ruthless, clinical player and team is on the end of them, we score 2, maybe 3, and we win the game. So there is a lack of real clinical, cutting-edge ruthlessness that wouldn't allow them saves or goal line clearances to be a factor if we were really, really, really ruthless in that final third. And again, we're splitting hairs and we're being hypercritical because, as you say, as a one-off event, you go, just one of them games. But because we have seen this on occasion, then you start looking at, beyond Jatta, beyond McGoldrick for goal scoring, the next highest league scorer has got 5 league goals. And that, to me, hints at, for all the possession, for all the time we have the ball in the opposition's half, a lack of ruthlessness. And I think that showed it on Saturday. In a case where, as a one-off, you'd go, we could consider ourselves a little bit unlucky. But, clinical teams take them chances. And they don't give the defenders chance to clear it off the line, or they don't give the keeper the chance to make the save. They take 1, 2, maybe 3 of them chances. But we didn't. But we're not out of it. But we've given ourselves a bit of a mountain to climb.
Okay, that's, I think, a very balanced viewpoint from Saturday. Let's get some thoughts and views from the flock. Gazzalee, sorry guys, won't be able to get on tonight. I'm over in North Wales with our Porsche apprentices, as you do. Looks like he's doing various outward bounds. Climbing, kayaking, canoeing. Enjoy the show, everyone. Richard Elvian, although not overly optimistic about our chances this coming Saturday, I see it as a normal away game, and we've conceded a goal in the first minute, but still have another 90 to turn it around. That's one way of looking at it from Richard. He goes on to say, I hope Stuart showed the team the Wimbledon fist pump footage. I can see Stell nodding sagely, and independently, I said exactly the same to the people around me while we waited to exit the Pavis on Saturday. And Richard goes on, I heard Mark Robbins posted the rawest to Wembley material from the programme all around the away changing rooms when he played Coventry in the playoffs a few years ago. It's probably me that mentioned that, Richard. Yeah, Mark did tell me that when Knott's put all the details of how we would travel to Wembley in the programme. And so, of course, classic scenario, they cut the programme, sticking up on the dressing room wall. We'll come back to that in a moment. Also, thoughts. Jurgen Halligan, I'll be down Saturday, going on the supporters coach. Should be a chance for Traore to make a name for himself. We'll be discussing who we think might be number 9 in the likely absence of Alassane Jatta, unless the club make an appeal and he wins it, or of course David McGoldrick is available. Immediately after the game, Stuart did say it was cramp. I think a lot of us thought it might be a tad more serious than that and a hamstring injury. We don't have any more news for you, I'm afraid, at this moment in time. And Phil, someone says worried because Didsey looked injured rather than cramp. All to play for, says Gary Scott. They were nothing special going forward, and I fancy us away from home. Martin Blaney, evening. What did Paul say about having a player sent off this season? Yeah, I know. But in my defence, it was someone else of the flock that brought this up, that we were one of only 2 clubs that hadn't had a player sent off this season. And I think I was referring to that. But yeah, we all know now. Anyway, we might get rescinded, and obviously we still are. But Chatwin, I'm glad Jatta isn't playing Saturday. On his current form, it's poor. Give someone like Whittaker or Traore a chance to show why they are in the squad. 8 home losses now, says Martin Blaney, and clearly that is not good enough. Evening from Stephen Newton. AD Clark, show regular. Evening all, the positives. We have a great away record. We created lots of chances against a very mean defence. We are still in the tie. Please hope we get a decent ref, though. Nothing ever seems to go right for us in these big games, says Royston. Talk about having no luck. Evening from Kay. David Dawes says, for a change, I thought we were the better side on Saturday. Evening all from Sunny Grantham, says Graham Oakes. Ian Cooksey, I thought we had 0 luck on Saturday. Both in terms of open play and with refereeing decisions. If Jatta hadn't responded the way he did, we would have had his red card overturned. But now, no chance. Come on, you pies, says Zach Fleming. Rob Simmons says, I'm going on Saturday with limited expectations. Don't fancy the drive to Southwest London, so parking at Barnet and then on the northern line to Tooting. Crikey, that's a trek. And the short walk to Plough Lane. Hope it's all worth it. Evening from John Gregory in Newark in Hucknall. Ian Haywood, typical Knott's curse. Nothing is straightforward. Lippy Jane, tickets purchased and supporters coach booked, all for £40, which I think is a bargain. We are going with positivity. Anything can happen. Let's hope we do get a bit of luck. Trish Riley, too easily bullied off the ball. Need to fight fire with fire and stand our ground. Lesson in dark arts definitely required. Jürgen Hallen, I'm driving to the ground to get the coach. Thanks to the brothers for the subsidised coach travel for £15. Steve Jones, evening. Is a happy Walsall fan, Stel. Evening all, a positive Walsall fan. That was like going back in time 4 months yesterday. Good luck for Saturday. You've got a hard, if not impossible, task. Hopefully, see you all at Wembley. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in the flock. And did anyone predict Walsall would get a 2-goal lead in the manner that they did at Chesterfield on Saturday? No home teams won their first legs. Shows we can still do it, says Ian Cooks. That's an interesting stat from the playoffs. Evening all from Royal Marlow, says Richard Hawksworth. Kenneth Pointer. Could Jatta be missing a positive? Jürgen Halligan, Walsall showed possession stats mean nothing. Richard Elvian, Marias on the bench. Yes, Junior Marias is available. What's the stats of shots that have hit the bar or post this year? It seems like a lot, says Lippy Jane. Richard Elvian, Robbo to start. Grant did well to get into good positions, but rather tame with his shooting boots. Evening from Maggie Grant. Greza Maxwell. Evening, we hit the bar. We had one cleared virtually off the line, and their keeper made a worldie. If we would have had the rub of the green, we could have been taking a 3-1 lead to Wimbledon. Malcolm Shearston. The referee on Saturday is Lewis Smith. He had an awful game when he did us in the National League. Well, that's filling us with confidence, Malcolm. Hey, at least it's not the same ref for both legs. Look on the bright side. What else have we got? Richard Hawksworth, Reed Paul's fire with fire. I would gamble and play Robertson for the first hour to give us a physical presence and would move Abbott forward behind whoever plays up top. Colin Metcalf, I thought we played quite well. Missed chances, cost us again. Get that right and we can get the job done. Mark Williams, evening all. It really is par for the course this season. Sat here on a Monday night wishing we had a different result from the weekend. The way it's gone recently, I'd have taken losing 1-0 first leg. When we install a little chat, Mark, before the show, I did actually say to Stel, I wouldn't be surprised at a 0-0, and I wouldn't be massively gutted if we lost that game 1-0. We'll get some more thoughts from the flock in a moment. Percentage-wise, Stel, where we are, how would you rate our chances of getting through? You know, the 0 to 100%. What are you giving us?
Well, clearly we're second favourites. You know, all the positivity in the world won't change that. But I mean, put a percentage on it. What I would say, 25%, maybe. Okay. I don't think it's as far away as people might perceive it to be. Yes. You know, we've been saying, haven't we, that we're better away from home before the first leg. So it's not just speaking after the event. And with the way we played and the chances we created, again, that shows you that we can hurt them. Again, you've got to put the ball in the back of the net. You know, they've got a clean sheet. They've come away with a clean sheet. So you've got to put the ball in the back of the net and be, you know, solid at the other end and not give a soft goal like we did. So, you know, we are outside bets, but I don't think it's as far away as maybe people will think. You've got to think about, try and put ourselves in the position of Wimbledon, put ourselves in their shoes. Had the first leg been away for Notts, and we'd have won 1-0, coming to Meadow Lane with a 1-0 lead, I'm sure we wouldn't all be going, oh, well, we're there, we're at Wembley, it's done, it's dusted. We'd still be fearing, oh, no, at home, we won't know whether to attack, we won't know whether to defend, protect what we've got. So that is exactly what Wimbledon have got at the minute. That's what they've got to deal with this week, the build-up to it, the expectation. They're expected to get to Wembley, you know. So, look, it's not over. We're definitely second favourites, obviously. But I don't think we're as big a long shots as you maybe think. I would put it at 25%. Play it 4 times, we get there once. Let's hope the once is Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the things we did talk about was psychology, mentality, and I think I did genuinely actually say to you, I would be interested to see how Chesterfield coped with having gone under the radar, scraped into the playoffs when probably most people thought they were third choice to get in the playoffs, and Salford were possibly the team. Yeah. But the moment you become kind of favourites, because instantly everyone then kind of said, "Oh, Chesterfield are bound to beat Walsall." That there's a mentality change, and clearly Walsall did brilliantly well to turn it around. No one really saw a 2-0 coming. And that doesn't mean they're through either, but it means they're probably in a hell of a lot better position than they thought they were going to be. And Chesterfield have now had a real reality check. And I do wonder a little bit, like you've pointed out there, with Wimbledon, we'll pick up on the comments from Richard Elvin right at the start of the show, because you and I will be of a similar ilk here. We both noticed and straight away saw the goalkeeper's gone over. I'm not sure who the player was that went over, giving it that. Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm doing is getting a 20-30 second video of those two running over, sticking that on the bus from the team hotel in South London, going to the Cherry Records Stadium. And take a look. Right. He saved a couple on Saturday, bang a couple in today. You know what I mean? They think they've done it. And it's just, it's time immemorial, that, isn't it? And regardless of whether they really were rubbing our noses in it or not, it happened, So motivation, psychology, it's a massive thing, isn't it? It's a massive thing.
Absolutely. And I said it on the radio. I say, the thing is, you wouldn't be giving it fist bumps at half time in a 90-minute game.
Yeah.
So don't give it fist bumps at half time in a 180-minute game. And that's essentially what they've done. So fair enough. They've won the game. They're going over to their fans. They can do whatever they want to do. But you're absolutely right. If I'm Stuart Maynard, I'm getting that clipped and I'm showing it the lads all week and right before the kickoff. And I've got, as you mentioned about the Coventry, Mark Robbins printing off the Wembley ticket. We had exactly the same nearly 30 years ago. I don't talk about my career much, but when we did this, and I'll be talking about it this week more than ever, because that semi-final, we lost, and I'm talking about when I was at Bradford, we lost the home leg 2-0. And I don't know if the Walsall fan wants to cover his ears for this, but we lost at home 2-0. And we went to Bloomfield Road on the Tuesday, whatever day it was, in the replay. And they'd done exactly the same. In the programme, in the paper, they'd got get your coach tickets to Wembley. And Chris Kamara, who was Bradford manager at the time, had it pinned up all over the dressing room. Yeah, lads, they think they're there. They think they're there. And sure enough, we went and beat them 3-0. It wasn't because of that or whatever. We turned up on the night, performed, and put the ball in the back of the net. But we turned it over. And we were making the loudest. We were fist bumping, banging on the walls of the changing room, singing, shouting, making sure they could hear us, that we were going to Wembley, not them. So, and I say that all to you to back up the point of, yes, psychology, absolutely use whatever you can to get the extra percentage out your players. And also to back up the fact that it is not over because you've lost the home leg. Like I say, then the pressure changes, the pressure shifts, psychology shift. Notts can go down there with a mentality of we've got to make something happen. We've got to score a couple of goals. So we've got to get on the front foot. That's it. End of. No disputes, no debates, no worrying about it or thinking about it, no doubts. Wimbledon have got something to protect potentially. And they don't want to be left with egg on their face after fist bumping at Meadow Lane. So, do you know what I mean? They might be in a stick or twist situation. Do we go and get another? Do we protect what we've got? If we go for another one, they might hit us on the break. We saw how good they were at opening us up. So they've got a bit of a stick or twist situation. Don't get me wrong. You'd rather be ahead, of course you would. But there's still a long way to go. And I'd say history has shown that these ties are not over because you take a lead from the first leg.
Well, Darren Moore, 4 down, was it?
Well, that's unbelievable. That the Chef Wednesday Peterborough one, wasn't it? But, like I say, but this is a one goal. This is a 1-goal swing. It's win and away game. Win and away game, and at the worst, it'll be extra time and penalties. So, look, what is intriguing, we've got the second best home record in Wimbledon. We had the second best home record through in the league against the second best away team in Notts in the league. So it's like fire with fire. It is going to be a case of two teams going at it who will expect to win. But like I say, not go their second favourites, but it is very, very much doable.
We're talking there about raw emotion, aren't we? Psychology, call it what you will. And there's probably not a lot of science to that. Do you know what I mean? It's raw emotion. Come on, all that. And that's not necessarily a trait that you associate with Notts. We are a purist, process-driven team. Yeah. Technically, throughout the whole of the side, all very, very comfortable on the ball. Now, I hesitate to say use the word bullied by Wimbledon, but they took it right to the edge. They knew what they were doing at all times. Managed, I think, as Johnny Jackson pointed out, to keep 11 players on the pitch. Yeah, and Joe Lewis, he scored against us down there from the corner, didn't he? I don't think we troubled him a great deal on Saturday night. Is there an argument? Billy Brindley, a long time ago, fullback, and he used to manage on the local non-league circuit when I was starting out about 17, 18. And he used to have a phrase for it. He'd say, give him a reducer. And the reducer basically was, sort him out, go on over the top, elbow him, whatever it was. Yeah. His phrase was a reducer. Yeah. I mean, Notts are not necessarily that type of team, and the modern game has evolved. But do you want to see a bit more spark and fire and brimstone from Notts rather than a stereotypical process-driven, keeping the ball kind of performance?
Yeah, look, you always want it to be, like I say, the game's changed. So the days of a reducer, I played in them days, and yeah, they would reduce you to tears half the time. But thankfully the game has changed a little bit. But you can still be cute, be clever, be streetwise, and I think Notts are to a point. I think they are. We're not a soft touch. We're not too nice. But I think Wimbledon probably, and they probably have to be, because they haven't got the technical ability in the team maybe that Notts have got. So they have to be, come on, let's agitate them. Let's get in the face of it. Like I say, the Jatta sending off is a perfect example of it. He's having his shirt ripped off his back, basically. The defender's got hold of it, but manages to let go at a time where he can't then get the ball that he was favourite for. The referee somehow hasn't seen it, hasn't given a free kick. So he's done it perfectly. The defender, I think it was Harbottle, who had him. He's done it perfectly because he's not been penalised and he's got a Notts player sent off effectively off the back of it. Now, that's why all these gamesmanship, shirt pulling, all this sort of dark arts, as you want to call it, that's why they exist, to try and get a reaction, like it got, and to give your team an advantage. Now, like I say, you said we didn't trouble Joe Lewis. Well, I think we did with the chances we created, but not him. I know exactly what you're saying. I think Jatta, could he be more physical with him? I think he sort of lost the physical battle with him as a 1-against-1, as a duel. But you've got to go as close to the line as you possibly can push it without going over it, but also not letting it detract from you playing the sort of football you want to play. That's the perfect team. It's the perfect balance. Nasty without the ball, horrible to play against, lovely to watch when you've got the ball. That is the utopia in football. Very difficult to achieve, but that is what you're after. So, of course, you can't let Wimbledon bully us. I think they bullied us down at their place, outworked us, outplayed us. I think pretty much down at their place, but certainly outbullied us, out street smarted us. I think, if I'm being honest. So we can't let that happen. Obviously, we can't afford mistakes in this second leg. We've got to go there and play, as near perfect a game as we possibly can. But they're capable of doing it. But we do have to obviously stand up to the atmosphere that's going to be there. It's going to be a partisan atmosphere, just like it was at Meadow Lane, but obviously it's going to be the other way round. So you've got to keep your head, keep your composure. You've got to be physical. You've got to be nasty. You always want to be nasty, horrible to play against, whether you're a striker, a defender, or whatever. I've said it many a time. There's nothing worse as a footballer than people thinking, "I don't mind playing against him. Don't mind. It's all right. I don't mind playing against him." No, you hate that. You want people to absolutely loathe playing against you, and you want opposition fans to loathe having to watch you play as well, because then you're upsetting them. You're doing something right. So we've got to do that. We've got to do that. I'm not saying we didn't do it Saturday. I say I think it's more down to the clinicalness of the finishing. But we've certainly got to match him in that aspect, because it's going to be a lively atmosphere. If we can do that, then who knows? Maybe the atmosphere will or the decisions might go our way. Maybe something like that could happen in our way. What happened at Meadow Lane can certainly happen the opposite way round down at Plough Lane, Cherry Red Record Stadium. It can happen. So look, we are in it. We are in with a fight, and the lads, you've just got to go and give it everything they've got, and hope it's good enough on the night.
I mean, do you think with the recruitment metrics of the team, which appear to prioritise technical competence, skill on the ball, comfort on the ball, do you think we've got enough of those players to stand up against a likes of Wimbledon? Because that would be, and I'm sure end of the season, depending where things are, this will be a topic of discussion. Are we physically strong enough and capable of being nasty enough? All bullies, you try and stand up, don't you, in the playground? Have we got enough in the group of players to be able to combat the likes of Wimbledon and those where they come with a physicality?
Yeah, we certainly have. Yeah, we certainly have. Now, do we show that all the time? No, of course not. There's games this season where it has, Wimbledon being one of them, maybe Salford, another one where we've not played well enough. And to combat, like I say, it's not about going for players the likes of, say, a Jody Jones, a Matt Palmer. I'm thinking some of the smaller, less physical players. It's not about, right, you've now got to be up against Joe Louis, 6'2", and stop him winning. It is about, you've got to use the ball and your touch and your guile and your ability to move the ball well enough, sharp enough, quick enough that they can't get near you, that they're chasing shadows. And when they've got the ball, you've got to get in their faces. You've got to be ugly. You've got to upset them. You've got to not allow them time to play, because it's all right perceiving them as the bigger, physical, less skilled team, but they've got some good players. They have got good players who will hurt you if you stand off and allow them to play. So, this is not David against Goliath, not little boys against big men. This is two well-matched teams who are balanced in slightly different areas, or their strengths lie in slightly different areas, coming against each other and having to find a way to compete against each other. So Wimbledon have got to find a way to deal with not possession and movement off the ball, and the way they like to play, their little patterns of play and their little bits of movement, when it's done well, difficult to live with. And we saw that at Meadow Lane. We had a couple of one-on-ones with the keeper where we opened them up, didn't take advantage, as we said, but they couldn't cope with that sort of movement when it was done well. And likewise, one floaty little cross with a bit of indecision in the 6-yard box at the other end, and they get a goal, and that's why they go down there with a lead. So, you've got to cut out their mistakes. The fact we're one down means we can allow ourselves less errors, less mistakes in the second leg than Wimbledon can. They've potentially got a little bit of a cushion. But again, the psychology of the game, if Nott's got the first goal of the game in the second leg, you just know what the psychology of the game is going to do. The nerves and the fear and what it's going to be like down there. So, look, we've got to stand up to it. Of course we have. You have to do that in every football match against whoever you're playing. But it's more for me about, you've got to play to your strengths as well as you can. And your perceived weaknesses or your weaker areas, you've got to be at the top of your game there. And again, we need a clean sheet. We've got to go down there thinking we need a clean sheet. So it's possible. We haven't had enough in the last sort of part of the season, or certainly for the last few games. We haven't had any in 6, 7 games.
Newport away, last clean sheet, I think, isn't it?
MK Dons at home.
MK Dons at home.
Yeah. MK Dons at home. And I am just reading that off my list of results there. I've not just got that in memory. But yeah, we need we've got to go down there thinking we need to score at least 2, and we need a clean sheet. and what will be will be. But predominantly, go get on the front foot, go and play, go and believe we can do it, because you're good enough to score one. If you're good enough to score one, you can get however many. And like I say, just the psychology of the game within the 90 minutes. They've got all the build-up, the expectation, but the psychology of the game can change very, very quickly. And, it really will test them mentally as well as physically. So, look, Notts go down there in a way with not a lot to lose. So that expectation is all on Wimbledon.
Yeah, and as an aside, it really was a night when nothing went for us. Roll back the clock a year earlier. I was at Baseford at one of the Notts Sunday Cup finals, and Riley Harbottle was there because Poets were playing. That's he was involved with that club for many years, and his dad. And I was chatting to them, and they were on the lookout. They were moving clubs, looking to move clubs at the time. From Mansfield, and I spoke to Riley, I spoke to his dad, and they said, "Oh, Macy, have a word at Notts, And what I hadn't fully realised was that Riley was on loan and played under Stuart Maynard at Wealdstone. So I think there was certainly an interest from Riley. I know obviously he's got his agent and there's a list of clubs that were talking to him. But, just to rub salt into the wound, that conversation did take place a year ago. He ends up at Wimbledon, of all places, and scores that goal. So it was kind of a night when nothing went for us. Hopefully, things are going to change around on Saturday. Colin Metcalf makes an interesting point. I genuinely hope we can do it, as I feel Stuart's job may depend on the next game, and I desperately want it to work out for him. I also noticed Sam Slocum giving it plenty from the dugout, which I loved seeing on Saturday night. What else have we got? Wooljam, we need to tug some of their shirts Saturday. That's how they scored their goal, holding Platt and Beddoe down. Refs seem blind to it. I think you have not that you would necessarily disagree, Stel, but I think you have a marginally different view, or that becomes part and parcel of the game. And, I guess the question, you're a striker as opposed to a goalkeeper. Was that perhaps something the keeper could have come out and claimed, in which case it would have negated the shirt pulling and all the rest of it?
Yeah, look, I think that there was definitely a photograph doing the rounds, isn't there? Because our esteemed friend Stance, he put it on the WhatsApp group, and then it shows, Bugio with a handful of shirt, and both those. But unfortunately, this happens. If you took a photograph of every free kick, corner, set piece, every time anybody's in the area, believe me, that is part of the game. As a striker, you want to pin your defender and get hold of his shirt so you know where he is and you can hold him down. And if you can do it where the ref and the officials don't see you, you'll get as good as they'll give as good as they get. Should I say defenders? Certainly more so. So again, that's where you've got to win that battle. You've got to win that battle as a centre half. Don't allow your striker to pin you and grab hold of your shirt. You be on the front foot. You be moving him out of the way, shifting him out of the way legally. Cleverly. But that's what's got to happen. And yes, I think. At the time, I think Alex Bass thought about it, didn't he? Thought about coming for the cross and stayed on his line. I think if he could have done it over again, he would have come and cleared it all, because it was there to be claimed. And it's unusual because he does normally come and claim crosses. Alex Bass, he's done brilliantly well at doing that this season. But it again, typical of nothing really going for you on the night. The one time he hesitates and doesn't come and thinks, well, Matty Platt heads 90% of everything away out the centre of the box. He's being pinned and allowed himself to get pinned. Jacob Beddoe's being took out of the equation, and all of a sudden Riley Harbottle's free. He's lost his marker, whoever's marking him, or people have switched off, and he's able to go in there and produces a decent header and puts it in the back of the net. And like I said, that is the difference. They got a chance. They didn't get many chances in the game. I can only really remember a couple of chances. One where Bass makes a good save low down in the first half from the glance header, and then the goal. But from their two chances, they put one in the back of the net. We've had by far the better chances, but we couldn't get one in the back of the net, and that is the telling difference. So we will debate about all the shirt pulling and the potential. Were we bullied? Were we too soft? Were we too nice? But if you take your chances, and this is what happens in so many games, what happens in both penalty areas in terms of putting the ball in the back end, at the back of the net at one end, and keeping it out at the other, that's what determines a game, and therefore colours your thinking about what's gone on in that game. You know, Notts were the better team, but they didn't take their chances. Wimbledon got the win, and that's all that matters.
Saturday is the day the team needs to stand up and be countered, says Richard Elvian. Will Wimbledon stick or twist, he adds. Chris Gosling, if we get to Wembley, are we bringing Kyle Cameron back for the coin toss? There you go. Wimbledon will try and strangle the life out of the game on Saturday. What about Archie Mayer on the bench, says Richard Elvian. I was reading somewhere, I think he's been released by Norwich, so he'll be looking for another club. Colin Metcalf, football is simple for me. If we win, I'm happy. If we lose, I'm not. And if we draw, I want more next time. I'm not bothered what we look like, so long as the result is there. That's definitely a fan after my own heart, Colin. I appreciate not everyone is quite as black and white and that as that in the way that they approach and enjoy their football. No shirt offer, says Gresham Maxwell tonight. He has all of those, as in behind me. Ian Cooksey, one for you, Paul. We played the Masters of the Dark Arts at Ellen Road in October 1975. Nobody fancied us, but what happened next? Yeah, well, we did. If memory serves, we did have Brian Stubbs, David Needham, Jimmy on the bench. So I think we were able. We might have been a division lower, but we weren't exactly shrinking violets, were we? That team that Jimmy put together that went through the divisions. Ian Hayward, Omar Bugle was making a nuisance the minute he came onto the pitch. We need more of that. Ian G, Dark Arts doesn't appear on our scoring matrix for recruitment. Richard Elvian's been studying Notts' released videos. No Didsy on today's training video, he said. Junior Marias has been mentioned by a few of you. That would be the archetypal, the striker who comes in from the cold, wouldn't it, if we see Junior on Saturday? We'll be coming up in a minute to who we think in the absence of certainly Alessandra, and I think a lot of us will be a little surprised to see, let's say, David starting, but hopefully it is just a severe case of cramp, and we get him back out on the pitch next Saturday. Ian G, shake it up. The back 4-4-2, proper wingers, 2 up top. They won't expect that. Don't you think that the goal Platt has been fouled by Bugle? Another one the ref missed, says Darren, and Stell's kind of addressed that. But Chatwin, Brian, here we are. It's just reiterated what I'm saying. Brian Stubbs, Dave Needham, and Pedro Richards used to hit hard first and let the players know we are here. That's what we need to do now. Ian Cooksey, Riley Harbottle's uncle Mark did play for us, correct? He did. The Harbottle brothers were Notts' apprentices. I saw him score on his debut at Darlington in 1985. Just checking some of the flock on away goals. Don't believe away goals count double. So if we were to win 2-1, guys, we have the delights of a penalty shootout. Okay, so that is right, isn't it, Stell?
Yeah, I can definitely confirm away goals don't count double, so it is just purely aggregate. I think there's extra time and then penalties if it's level. So okay. Yeah, no away goals rule that's been done away with.
Hey, I tell you what, I'll take penalties now, Stell.
So would I. So would most of us. I'm sure we would. But yeah, let's go and win it by 2. We don't need penalties.
Yeah. Wayne Wilkins, the flock grows in Barcelona for at least a few days by 100%, Paul. Pleasure to meet Pythagorean earlier this afternoon. So Pythagorean was a bit of a seasoned traveller. So he's been out in Catalan. Trust he will be back for the weekend. I'm sure that he will be. Martin Blaney, Wimbledon are a tough nut to crack. Best defensive record, I think Stell mentioned it previously, 35 goals conceded. Evening from Newark, says Adam Kent. The wife has the podcast on, just checking in. Didsy will be key this Saturday. Well, I hope he is. It's going to be an early start. Indeed it is. Well done to the club, subsidising travel. I think the coaches are going 6:30, is it 7? So get yourselves down there. I'm on a train. I've used my senior citizens rail card, Stell. Obviously, I don't look old enough, clearly. So I've got a going down £32 first class ticket, which I'm quite happy with. It does mean we're going on the 7 o'clock train line. And I then get a separate note saying, due to very busy nature of the train, there are no available reserved seats for you, and you may have to stand. And I thought to myself, what's the point of having a first class ticket if I'm still ready standing? Do I stand in the first class vestibule? I don't know. Serve me coffee and bacon cob stood up. I don't know.
If you're there with an OAP ticket, Paul, somebody will give you your seat for an old man, aren't they? They're still gentlemen around these days.
I don't look old enough. No one's going to give me the ticket. I think I'm a 40-year-old. Okay.
Delusional. Nurse, get the medicine.
Oh dear. Yeah, and one or two people have been asking me. There's no railway line into King's Cross, so people that like myself that often travel from Newark or Grantham down that line, that's completely shut. And that's, of course, led to massive overcrowding on the trains on the Nottingham line into London. And that's also why the rail fares have been really expensive. But if you want always try and look on the positive side. I did today book my hotel for Sunday night on Bank Holiday weekend before the playoff final. I booked it 180 quid, which is a bit pricey at the Novotel. I would point out, before you think I've gone complete, Stell's looking at me thinking, have you gone completely raving mad?
I know.
It is fully cancelable. Okay, so I can cancel it on Saturday night if I need to, 100% refund. And I do know a few other Notts fans have done that, because the reality is, if we get to Wembley, suddenly the prices become absolutely ridiculous. So there you go. Right, that's my travel arrangements. Sanger Smith, Niall Quinn, there's an old name, yeah. Used to have every other what was that? I can't even read it. He got loads but basically how to jump and win penalties. Junior the wild card, says Andy Easom, among many others. Let's debate, Stell. What do you do up top? And look, we all hope Dids is there. A lot of us kind of think that might be more of a hamstring than cramp. I think we're working on, well, okay, let's just wind the clock back a tad. So we've had a chat about Alasanya's red card. And for me, one of the challenges you have here is that we all tend to say years ago, that's fine, and he didn't make much contact, the bloke rolled over. I think I'm right in saying that the letter of the modern day law says that if you jump, i.e. both feet come off the ground, you're then not in control. It's dangerous. And the problem is Jatta definitely started the tackle motion with both feet jumping off the ground. It appears he gets 1 foot down before he then makes contact with the ball or whatever. I guess it's a moot point as to whether you can win the appeal on that or whether it's just automatically dismissed because he's raised both feet off the ground. What I would say to many people, they said, oh, well, you definitely won't win it because of his conduct afterwards. They will only be appealing the red card. The red card was given before Jatta then started to remonstrate with one of their players. So I think that is immaterial. They're going to judge it solely on what he was given the red card for. Would you appeal, Stell? Do you think it is a red? Do you think it's sufficiently grey that they're not going to rescind it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can appeal it. I think you can appeal it. It is a red card that is based on somebody's assessment of it, in terms of it's not, I don't think it's quite black and white. Yes, he's both feet have come off the deck, so he's out of control of his body. He's potentially endangering an opponent, but I said I could see why he got a red card on the night, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, I can't see that they would rescind it if we did appeal. But I think you've got to appeal. I know they could add a game on if they think it's a frivolous appeal, but I don't think this is. I think this is an opinion-based decision. Whereas, and I think I said it post match or whatever. I think 8 out of 10 refs probably give him a red card. But I think 2 out of 10 Reds won't. They'd give him a yellow or whatever. So I don't think it is, 10 out of 10, no, that's a definite red. And I believe that the analyst on Sky, it was Aaron McLean and it might have been Luke Williams, to be fair. No, he's possibly going to be biased. But I think Aaron McLean sort of said he felt for him, but didn't think it was a definite red card. So I think there's enough doubt there. To put an appeal in. And at the very, very least, I don't think they'll extend the game's ban, for a frivolous appeal, because I think it is subjective. He's subjective quite how endangering an opponent he was. He sort of, yes, he left the ground, but he put one down first and got the ball, obviously. I mean, but getting the ball is almost a moot point nowadays, isn't it? Because it's that endangering opponent, being out of control of your body, wording of the law. So I would definitely appeal it, because I think, it's not absolutely cut and dried. My fear is it won't get overturned, though, because you need absolute proof. And I think what also goes against him is that the fact that on the video, or the video I've seen anyway, is that you can see the shirt tugging beforehand, clear as day. And so automatically your mind is thinking, all right, he's frustrated because he's had his shirt pulled, and look, he's lunging in trying to hurt somebody. Straight red card, or the red card stands. That is what I think might go against them in terms of an appeal. But you may as well appeal. Look, it's potentially the last game of the season. You may as well appeal, but I wouldn't. Again, I would put that as about a 25% chance of getting it overturned as well. What I would say is, if I thought, it's a frivolous appeal, I would say, no, don't bother. It's a definite red, and you risk having it lengthened, a lengthier ban. No, I don't think there's any chance of that. I think it is subjective, and you never know. Looking at it again, and depending again, something people like to, it does depend on the wording of the referee's report that gets put into the Football League as well, what he's written in terms of the sending off, what he's seen, and if he mentions the aftermath, the melee afterwards, we don't know.
Is it your understanding that as it's a red card in a playoff, it would only be a one-match ban for the next playoff game, not kind of 3 games that can then potentially rule him out of a final, a game next season?
I've got to be honest, I've not even looked at that. Again, but that would come down to the wording, again, the wording in the referee's report for whether it's violent conduct, if you like, or endangering an opponent, as to what punishment it gets. I'll be absolutely honest, Paul, I haven't even considered looking at whether it's 1 or 3 game ban.
Yeah. And interestingly, even among Notts fans, we try to be as balanced as possible. There's certainly probably more than less to back up your thought on that, Stell, that while we might be frustrated about it, with the modern day laws, it's a red because you cannot necessarily tackle in the way that, born out of frustration, Alessandro did. In the modern game, it's a red, says Ian G. Maybe we get a retrospective punishment for behaviour, even if they appeal, says Ben Looms. And then there's some debate as to what and how many games Alessandro may miss. You can't tackle like that in the modern game, says JB Levers. Adam Culf, I think, if I'm honest, it's a ref. It's a red. 1 or 2 people saying it could work in Notts' favour with another striker. I mean, Stel, who would you play up top? And for this, we're saying if David McGoldrick isn't fit.
Oh my word! Right,
False
okay,
nines, or I don't really know. What
yeah.
what are you doing?
Well, I've not given it great amount of consideration, but if both of the obviously if Jata's obviously suspended, not going to be rescinded or anything like that, and Didzy's not available as well, then I think you have got a question, and obviously Stuart Maynard has. My Traore, obviously he sees him more than we do, but he's a striker who's come in and hasn't scored a goal since January. Not had loads of game time, but so you would say, well, he's probably next cab off the rank for one of the places. But I just wonder, with our Wimbledon or with the three big centre halves, do you then go and set up something completely different? Just maybe try and pull a rabbit out of a hat, which sometimes might go against it, but do something totally different and play. And I'm guessing because again, I don't see the lads in train. I don't see them, day in day out. But put a Will Jarvis, for instance, go and play a false nine, completely false nine. Don't play with the centre forward, and give them three centre halves of theirs a question to answer. Hold on, there's nobody up here for me to mark. What do I do? And again, you'd have to work on it all week. You would have to work and work and work intensely because it's not what we've done, throughout the season. But I think I would possibly be tempted, and maybe not from the start. You'd maybe go, okay, like for like, we'll put Traore in, we'll put Charlie Whittaker in, or Will Jarvis, and make whatever changes you need to the team. But we'll play the same formation for the first half. See where that gets us. If we're 0-0 at half time, then you know what, we're going to pull a rabbit out of a hat. We'll have worked on this, and we're going to go false nines. No centre forward. We're going to play the box midfield, as they call it. Going to play, a couple of men in them with drawn wide positions, and just not give the centre halves anyone to mark. Don't go and stand up against them. We're going to play on the periphery, work it into wide areas, and then we're going to enter the box from deep, and we're going to have 2-3 players running in from deep, not standing in there potentially being marked, having their shirt pulled, but a George Abbott, a Will Jarvis, Charlie Whittaker. You get round the D and then get in the box. As the ball gets wide, as we can see delivery coming, you run from late. So you don't stand in there and get marked. You come from late. So something like that. Something a little bit left field. To ask a question. To do something different. Because I do think, Alsan Jatta has not been in his best form in the last 10 games or so. That's I think fair for us all to see. But Didsy, he is a big loss if he's not going to be there. So if you miss both of them, then obviously just physically it changes the look of the Notts team. So then I think you're probably as well off doing something totally different. I'd say totally different. I'm not talking about, but I'm talking in them front positions. So maybe play 2 withdrawn nines and don't play anybody up against Harbottle, Lewis, and Johnson, the other lad. Say, right, we'll pose you a question. What are you going to do? If we don't come and stand up with you, what are you going to do? How far are you going to come into midfield to come and track a man or find a man? Or are you going to stay in your position and mark nobody, which means we'll have an overload in the middle of the pitch and in wide areas? So that would be where I'd be looking at. If McGoldrick and Jatta were both unavailable, I'd be looking at changing something in the setup of the team, because I don't think we've got 2 ready-made replacements just to go, yeah, well, if they're not available, we go Marias, we go Traore, or whoever. I think you've got to change something.
Does he go with, and you've mentioned Jarvis, so you've mentioned Whittaker. What I found a little bit interesting on Saturday was that 3 of the kind of creative players that we signed in the January transfer window, Traore, Whittaker and Jarvis, in a home leg in a playoff, not one of those 3 started the game. What does that say, if anything, what to you?
Well, look, I think it says a little bit about when push comes to shove and you need to trust people to perform on the day, that maybe them lads that were brought in January, and Charlie Whittaker's had some good moments, scored 4 goals, he's lively on occasion. Will Jarvis, the same. I think he's grown. I think he's got a wonderful ability just to waltz past players that we've seen on occasion. but they're young lads, like I say, new at the game, cutting their teeth in the game, finding their way in the game. So what I would say is they're not maybe ready-made now to come in and play week after week after week, And I think Stewart's looked at them and gone, yeah, undoubtedly got ability, but maybe not maybe not able to produce at this stage of their careers and this level with their level of experience week after week after week. And when he pushed them to shove selecting the team for Saturday, he's left them on the bench, and been willing to introduce them off the bench maybe, but he's gone down other roads. So I think that sort of says to me that, you'd look at that recruitment in January and go, and we will do this again at the end of the season, of course, was it what was needed at the time? Not going to say that these are not going to turn out to be good players for Notts, because they might well be. But for the 4 months we've had since the window, they've not been the missing pieces of the jigsaw to get us over the line so far. And by the way, this is not their fault. By the way, this is not saying that we are in the playoffs because of them. Like I say, they've contributed, but they've just not added what we needed. They've not added enough. We lost Dan Crowley and the influence that he has on the team. We've not quite replaced him well enough in terms of what's happened in these 4 months at the minute. But if they score a brace apiece down at Wimbledon and then a hat-trick each at Wembley, we'll be changing our tune very quickly. But that that's how it looks to me, with the fact that they're not being selected in the starting lineup when it matters, in games when it really matters. They're perhaps saying, or perhaps there is an issue where Stewart's saying, look, from what you've shown, you've got ability, but I don't know if that is ability that I can rely on a 1 or 2 game basis. We need performances. Can I rely on you? They're both young lads, so the performance levels are going to be up and down at this stage of their career. And I think that's what we've seen. We've seen quality from them in spells, in certain games, and then we've seen them have quieter games. It's exactly what happens at the beginning of your career. So when it matters, he went down, he picked Sam Austin, shows the trust he has in Sam Austin at the weekend, who's been out for 3 months, pretty much before that. So team selection's always difficult, but yeah, the fact that none of the 4 players that came in January were in the starting lineup, tells you a little bit about, the perceived effectiveness of that January window.
Yeah. So Saturday, we're all heading down early. Radio Nottingham raided the piggy bank again for you. Have you Epps and Downs?
I don't know where we're staying yet. I've not had final word. I think we are going overnight, but I don't know when we're heading down, because I think they've got to produce a programme for Friday night, so it might be being presented from somewhere near Epsom or somewhere like that. But yeah, we're going down overnight, and like I say, we'll be there nice and early the next day, making sure everything's ready, making sure that hopefully we produce a faultless performance, and hopefully the team do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, look, I like you think we have got more of a chance than many of us might think. We've not really discussed it much tonight, but I did detect an awful lot of people were really, really flat the whole of last week. I can't remember us going into a playoff game where everything had been quite so, and I think it was a Saturday night, so the 12,000 on the face of it, cool, that's really poor. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. You only have to look at the family stand to see that clearly a large percentage of our really young support wouldn't be able to come at that time on a Saturday. I think there were quite a few at the boxing with Lee Wood. Another bad night for someone from Nottingham. I thought it was really, really flat, the lead up to it. But I genuinely think we've still got a chance. The one thing that concerns me a little bit is we've just got to defend set piece, because and I know, they scored that early goal, didn't they? That Joe Lewis again. They will put plenty of balls into our box. That's how they scored on Saturday. We have got to man up to that. We've got to man up. And I think if we can deal with that, I actually think we might move the ball around okay. But
yeah, absolutely.
We cannot concede from another set piece, a punted ball into the box, because that will kill us. That will kill us.
No, absolutely. Like I say, we've got to go down there, be as near to perfect as we can be. Like I said, we've only got to win a game. You know, we are behind, yes, but we've only got to win a game away from home. We've done that 10 times this season. Okay, we didn't do it down at Wimbledon, so maybe we owe them one. But we've done that 10 times. We've won on the road 10 times. So this is a team that picked up more points on the road. So we are by no means out of it. Absolutely by no means out of it. It's if we were going down there 3 behind, you know, like Bristol City or at Sheffield United, I'd be saying, do you know what? That is an absolute mountain and a half to climb. But we are not out of this. You know, do not one thing give up hope on it. Yes, we are second favourites, but this has now turned into a one-off game that we've got to win. You know, so all Notts fans, from being pessimistic and what have you, all of a sudden now we're losing and now we've put ourselves in a difficult position. Weirdly, might go, well, we're not expecting anything, so what the hell? You know, here's hoping. So, and it does funny things. Honestly, the psychology of football does funny things. And like I say, science might not be able to measure it, the pressure, the expectation. But in footballing terms, I always like to try and give an example. Wimbledon are 1-0 up. So their wing-backs, Tilley and Nerfville, when do they make their forward runs free in the knowledge, knowing, do you know what, if they exploit the spacing behind me and they go and score, oh God, I'm going to be the one getting pelters. If any of the defenders get dragged into a space, get turned, get done for the goal, I'm the one getting pelted. If I make a mistake, I tell you what, I'm going to be checked. Just holding midfield players, Hippolyte, Smith, if it's the same. Jake Reeves will probably sit there anyway, but just stay in. Just don't make that forward run. Just stay in. Be solid. Don't worry about it. You know, and then they stop making forward runs, and then Notts have the ball. And honestly, it can affect how you perform. It affects the game. Just like when there's a goal in the game, that will affect the psychology as well. Momentum will swing. Whatever might happen will happen. But believe me, there is now pressure and weight of expectation on Wimbledon, because they shouldn't lose, should they? They should win. They're at home. They're the team that's got a great home record. You know, they should win. They should be going to Wembley. But, oh my word, imagine the repercussions if them fist bumps at Meadow Lane come back to haunt them. Oh dear, I would not like to be in that dressing room at that time. And I would love to be in a Notts dressing room that could turn it round. And believe me, I've done it almost 30 years ago, and it's fantastic, a fantastic feeling.
Indeed. So rather than everyone cutting the little videos of the red card for Alessandro and others, do all the little cuttings of them two players with the fist bumps, you know, premature celebrations. Let's see what we can produce. Safe journey and travels to everybody going down there. It is an early start for us all, but here's hoping. I believe there are still a small number of tickets left. I think it is for season ticket holders today with 5 stamps or more, or 5 loyalty points. So I'm hoping that we and expecting that we have a capacity following down in South London. I will be back with 1 or 2 others next Monday, when hopefully we will be looking ahead to Wembley. Thank you one and all, as always, for tuning in tonight, and those of you listen to it on playback on Spotify or Apple as well. Stel, as always, thank you for your time.
Pleasure, Paul. Pleasure. I hope everyone has a good week. Let's say safe journey down there, and don't give up faith just yet.
And as Jurgen Halligan says, let's close with a comment from Jurgen. Wimbledon have only won 1 in their last 5 at home. There you go. Cheers for everything. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.